What did we learn yesterday?
We connected to the database and sent some SQL statements, is what we call them.
We did. What package did we have to use in order to connect to the database?
Postgres.
Yep, the PG package, right? Which is short for Postgres. That got our package in there so that we could connect. We had to set up our client because whenever we use a server, we need some client to connect to the server. We specified which database we were connecting into. What did it take to get that database set up? What were some of the steps that we had to do in Beekeeper?
We had to create a table for the data.
And before we could even create the table, what was the one step before that? We had to create the database that the table was going to go into, right? So we created our chat database, and then we created our messages table. And whenever I create a table, as you guys saw yesterday from the primary key that I had to look up, I always have to look up that syntax of what data type is it and all of that kind of information. What else did we do yesterday? What else did we learn? When did we have a light bulb moment? Started to see our first full stack data flowing. We started seeing, hey, we can insert data into the database. How are we feeling in general?
It was really cool at the end of class to suddenly think, oh, wait a minute. I see how this all connects. That's pretty cool.
That is the biggest thing with full stack, is that connection of understanding, hey, this is all, even though these are kind of three separate things, we can integrate them together, right? Anything else from yesterday? Just want to pull up this diagram to share with you guys.
I haven't been able
Oh.
to catch up or look at yesterday's video, so I don't have the right information yet. But I'm working on that today. It
Okay.
was a long trip.
No problem. I get it. It might be better. I'll leave that up to you if you want to drop out of this and then go to yesterday's recording. That may be more beneficial, only because we're going to continue working on that same project. And it might be a little tough to catch up to it. It's unfortunately not just the code anymore, right? Now we've got our database layer on top of that. So I can't just like share the zip file with you of just the front end or even the front end and the back end anymore, because we've got that database layer on top of it. So if you do find that it just makes more sense to drop out and switch over to the recording and then try and catch up that way, that's totally fine.
Is it possible if I can do that as well? Because I wasn't here for yesterday's class either.
That's totally fine. Yeah,
I was on babysitting duties.
no problem. So
I wasn't. I am gonna drop out because we're like in the middle of a restaurant right now. My family's in the restaurant. I'm in the car. But yeah, I was planning on watching that video and actually catching up, and then if I could watch both of the videos and catch up, and then that way I'm back to normal by Wednesday.
sure thing. I will post I will try and get tonight's video uploaded tonight instead of tomorrow. And then on Thursday, good reminder for everyone, we are off for Open Hack. Hopefully can see all your faces there, or whoever can attend. That will be Thursday at 6 p.m. at Common Space downtown. There is also a guest lecturer at Lemoyne, and that is at 3:30 at 4 p.m. at Lemoyne College in Gerwin Hall, or Grewin Hall, or I forget how they pronounced it, but that is on the future of technology and is presented by a local CEO. So if you guys can make it, understand that you guys have work schedules and all of that stuff, but I will be there 4 p.m. on Thursday, and then I will be headed to Open Hack directly afterwards. If anyone needs a ride, I'm happy to facilitate some transportation there as well. But shoot me a message if you need a ride or need any of that kind of stuff. Otherwise, hopefully we'll see you. The lecture is obviously optional, and then Open Hack is highly encouraged but not required for Thursday.
Quick question also. I haven't been able to hook up my iPad to my MacBook to make it a little bit easier once I start doing all these databases, because it's too many screens for just a MacBook.
Yep.
So do you think you have some time tomorrow for a one-on-one to try to see if I could get it hooked up?
Yep, it should. My one-on-one calendar should be pretty open for tomorrow. So, my Wednesdays are blocked out. Shoot me a Slack message if you don't mind, and I'll find a time to get you in the books. I have plenty of time tomorrow. We can figure out something.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, bye.
Xander, are you talking to us?
Sorry. Quick question. So is this project, is it for just today and tomorrow, or does it roll over into Thursday Wednesday as well?
Good question. We're gonna see how far we get. I think we're going to end the project here and then switch over to a slightly different way of getting it all to work in the blog application, which we'll be working on next. So I'm thinking that today will be the last day we work on the chat project.
Okay, all right. All right, so I'm just gonna go and watch week 19, right? Day 1?
Week 19, day 1. Yep. And I posted that earlier this morning, so it should be fully processed in HD.
Yeah, I work, so I really couldn't. I don't have the time.
Okay. No, I get it. That's why it's slippery slope getting behind, but it's called a boot camp for a reason. So good luck. Shoot me any Slack messages if you get stuck anywhere, and I can answer them over the break.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
No problem. All right, so this is a diagram that I showed you guys, but I kind of want to piece through where this happens in the code, right? Because diagrams are helpful, but when we actually can see it in our code, when we can understand what 1, 2, 3, 4 is, it makes it a little bit easier to understand what we're trying to accomplish, right? So I'm going to pop open my VS Code from yesterday. You guys don't have to follow along here. I just want to go through this example, and then we'll do our typical file setup and all of that kind of stuff. Okay, so in our app.js, we have this thing called make API call. But in order to understand this code, we need to understand the context of where we're at. Where does this code run? This code runs in my web browser. That is our client. That is our browser. That is your laptop itself. One gets kicked off here as soon as we send this fetch through. We say, hey, go fetch 3001 messages. That is number 1 in our diagram here. Okay, well, where does that go to? That goes to our server in Express. Our server in Express is over here getting the messages. But in order to get the messages, it needs to go to our database and select out those messages. Okay, what is that line doing? That's number 2 here. That's going from our API server into our database server. Okay, well, what happens there? The database has the information of all of those messages that it's sending back to our API server. That is happening 2 and 3 are kind of happening here. Now we need number 4, right? Once we get that data, what are we doing with it? We're pulling the rows out of that data and sending it back to the front end. Okay, where's that happening? That's coming back right here to our 4. So when our page first loads in the first couple milliseconds, this whole flow is done. But as a developer, it's really important to understand here, step by step, what is happening. Hey, we're going from our browser to the API server to the database back to the API server, and then completing the round trip back to the browser or the laptop. Do we have any questions in yesterday's code that popped up before we move into getting our setup all up and running and diving into tonight's code?
I do.
Sure.
Everything looked okay yesterday. And then I just opened my code. And it's got an app crashed and an error with child complications.
Is the error on our messages is not defined?
Let's see, my front end has the child problem.
Share your screen. Let's take a look.
Yeah, messages is not defined for the back end.
So we're going to fix that messages is not defined in the back end as one of the first things we do tonight. What I'm more concerned about here is your back end doesn't appear to be open. It's kind of like missing here. Any chance that you moved your back end folder?
Yeah, probably why it happened. I'll close this.
I would close both of them and we're going to start over fresh tonight. So see if following along works. And once you get everything up and running, if you're still having the problem, let me know and we can dive into it.
Okay, thank you.
Schneider, go ahead.
I have a general question. I was looking over whatever we did like 2 days ago when we were practicing the API calls. I was under the mindset that you had to use effect in order for the API calls to work. That not true?
Not entirely. So we always want to include our API calls in React in either a use effect or some event function. And the reason why we do that is we don't want our API call to happen every single time a component re-renders. So when you are typing a letter, right, and you have your on change and it's saving that information into state, that re-render is going through every time. We don't actually want it to re-render. We don't actually want it to make the API call every single time the component re-renders or gets updated. And because of that, we are supposed to put it in a use effect. Now, that's not to say that the API call won't work if you don't put it in a use effect. All that's saying is your API call will work over and over and over again when you only want it to load the first time that the component shows up. Now, sometimes you don't want it in a use effect. You want it when we send the message. Let me share my screen. We don't have our API call. We have our API call to get all of our messages in a use effect. But for the message input, we actually put it in the form submitted because we don't want this API call to happen when the component first loads. We want it to run after they hit the send button for the form.
Okay, I think I get the order to it.
Cool. Yeah, basically here, if we took out this use effect, it would still work. But anytime we type the letter, it would remake this API call to check for all of the messages. And we don't want that.
Gotcha.
Talai, did you need help catching up? I saw your message from a couple minutes ago. Are you good? Okay. All right, let's dive into our folder setup unless anyone else has questions. Okay. I know this might seem intimidating. I know this is a lot of steps, but I would encourage everyone to follow along that they can, because this is the only way that you're going to get that practice, right? Of getting hands-on, understanding step-by-step what's happening. So I'm going to go into my week 19, my day 1 folder. I'm deleting my node modules from there. I am also going into my front end and deleting my node modules from there. Then I am going to copy my entire day 1 folder and paste paste it, and rename that as day 2. I'm also going to send a zip file of this. So if you were not following along yesterday and would like to, you can use this zip file as kind of a launch off point. Schneider did share the poster for the guest lecture tomorrow. If you're around and have the time, it's 4 o'clock on Lemoyne's campus. Hopefully I will see you guys there, but that is totally optional. Thank you for posting that, Schneider. Okay, once I've got my day 2 created, my front end and back end, I'm going to open both of them in VS Code. And because we deleted our node modules, we're treating this like a somewhat of a new project. We need to regenerate them. So we're going to right click, open an integrated terminal on the front end and do our npm install. And while that's running, I'm going to switch back over to my back end, open an integrated terminal and do my npm install there. Once I have both of those installed, I can go ahead and run in my backend npm start. And again, we can run that npm start because in our package.json, we told it how to start. Now you may say, wait a minute, Max, how do you know, how does React know how to start? Well, if we switch over to the package.json, we can actually see that create React app is helping us out. It already put our npm start in there for us. So when we run that npm start, all it's doing is going into our package.json and running whatever command we have put in there. So I'm going to switch back over to my front end. I'm going to run npm start there. In general, it's always a good idea to start your back end before you start your front end. And if everything is set up, you should see your my messages interface and all of the data in the database. I'm going to start 2 live shares for you guys. Those are created and we should be off to the races. We'll give everyone a minute to catch up. And if anyone needs help, let me know. Artra.
All right, so in the day 1 folder, we deleted node module in the chat backend and the chat front end.
Correct.
All right, once we do that, then we're going to copy the day 1 folder and then paste it into the day 2 folder.
Correct.
All right, if I get stuck after.
We're just going to duplicate the day 1 folder, essentially. If you right click on it and hit duplicate, that's a quicker way of copying and pasting.
Right, okay. And set them up both like we did yesterday. Try to run the
npm install and then npm start.
And try to do it in backend first before the front end.
You got it.
All right.
If you have close out of your Postgres, you also want to make sure that that's still running. So if you have an elephant up in the top menu bar, it should have a green check mark next to Postgres. If it does, you're good to go. If not, just open that Postgres app, make sure that it's started up.
All right, I never closed it from yesterday, so.
You should be fine then.
Yep, it's still good.
Cool.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else need help?
No, but I just need a second to finish getting set up, my bad.
No problem. Takes a lot to get all those windows juggled around, so give everyone a minute to do that.
Max, you do an npx install and
npm install. npm for node package manager. Think about X as execute and M for manage. So the npm is going to be for managing our packages. npx we only use when we want to execute that package. Good to go. Anyone need one more minute? Okay. All right, we're gonna dive in here. The first thing that we ran into yesterday was that when we were in our server JS, what happened is we would come over here and we would send a message and hit send, and nothing happened. And it's like, well, why isn't anything happening? And I scroll down in my terminal and I get app crashed. And I'm like, all right, whenever I get an app crash, I'm not going to panic at that error message. I want to know what caused the app to crash. So I'm going to scroll up in my terminal a little bit and I see messages is not defined. But it is also telling me the issue is in server line 39. So I'm going to go to my server line 39, and here is this res.send messages. But I don't actually query my messages anywhere. And when I do my insert isn't going to give me all the messages. It's just going to give me the information that I inserted. Okay, well, we've got this query up here that's getting the messages for me. So I could just copy and paste that and say, hey, I want my messages query down here. And I could say, hey, send the messages back from the DB result.rows. But what rule did we just break? Our code isn't very...
Don't reuse.
Yep, dry. Don't repeat yourself or don't reuse your code, right? We don't want to be repetitive in our code there. And you know what? There are going to be times that after we update or delete a message that we still want to send back all the messages. So in order to solve for that, we make a new function. So we're going to say const send messages is equal to, and we're going to get the response as a parameter. And what we're going to send back, we have to make it async because we know we are going to run our query. Then we're going to take our DB result and put that in our send messages. And we're also going to put our res.send messages DB results row right into that. Okay, now inside our server.get messages, we can actually clean both of these steps up and combine them all into one that says await send messages res. And we can rinse and repeat that down here. We can await our send messages res. Pausing there, getting out my football playbook in honor of the Super Bowl coming in a couple days. I only know that because Rihanna's performing. Just kidding.
That's awesome.
I grew up in the Eagles area, so I do know who's playing. Okay, so how is this happening? We get our res in, or I'm sorry, our rec in, our request in for the messages. We then take the res coming in from that request, that response that Node is giving us, and we pass it into this function called send messages. The res here lines up with the res up here. So what are we doing? We run this query in here, then we take that res and we send back the results of the query in the response. The beauty of that is not only can we link up our send messages to our send messages here. The whole point of putting that in its own separate function is we can reuse that function down here to send our messages back to the front end as well. I'm gonna start a poll just to make sure. We modified a lot of code in there. All the code we modified is between 23 and 42 on my screen. So check that. Make sure you understand we're reusing this send messages, and we made this new function that's replacing the res.send and the query and the two beneath it. You start a quick poll to see where you guys are at.
For the first time in my life, I think I'm actually excited to watch football.
Why is that?
But she's gotten me liking football and basketball.
Gotcha.
And so I'm all excited about the Super Bowl because I'll be home after work just as it starts.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm gonna eat a lot of junk food.
I do have a question, Max, about the so in the server.post,
Mhm.
The two awaits. No, I think that's the first time, because I feel like before when we've used, oh wait, no, wait, there's no dot thens. So I guess I was just curious, is there like when you would know to use like the two awaits? So I understand where the first await is because we have to wait for the connection to happen with the database and then to do that insert, to run that insert.
Correct.
All right. So then the await, like, what would happen if we just did send messages with the res, like without the await? I guess like what would prompt the mind to know that like that takes another await?
Because
I
we're
guess,
using the async up here.
okay, so but I get that you're using the async, and I get why we're using it for the query, right? I guess I just don't. So does everything you do inside of an async function, like every return or everything that you are expecting from it needs an await in front of it?
No. So it's a complicated answer, but it's a good question to ask, which is why I'm stumbling a little bit. What would happen is if we said, let's just do this, console log 1, console log 2, console log 3, and console log 4. Okay, so the way this would normally work is the request would come in for the message. We would wait for the database query. We would console log 3 out. Then we would go into send messages. Send messages is going to come up here. And because we're waiting on that asynchronous function to finish, it would console log 1, send back the result, console log 2, and then console log 4.
Okay, I get what you're saying now. When you said the async up there, I thought you were talking to the async in the post function. You were referring to the async up in the send messages.
This
since
async lines up with this await.
Got it. Okay, so that's why that has to wait, because it's using that function.
Exactly.
Okay, I get it.
Now, the technical piece of that is that if we take out this await, what would happen is it would console log 3, it would kick off this send messages function, but it wouldn't wait for this query to run. So what it would do is it would log out 4, then it would log out 1, run the database query, wait for the database query, send everything back, and then log out 2. Normally, that isn't what we want it to do. We don't want it to be running anything in the background. However, there are times where you have a very large request coming in and you just send back to the front end like, hey, we're working on it, like in progress. And if you want a progress update, you can check back in with the server. We'll update that for you. But that's a little bit more complicated of an infrastructure to build of managing an asynchronous process in the background. That's kind of leveling up. I wouldn't expect a junior developer to be able to set up that infrastructure. So the reason this would still work, this wouldn't cause any issues because eventually it would send back the right information. But whenever we call an async function, unless we intentionally want it to run in the background, we usually call it with the await down here.
Okay, perfect. That was the connection I was looking to make, is 'cause I just like to look for things that would trigger the mind to know when to do a certain thing. And so that's kind of what I got to too, which is anytime you call an async function, you should put await in front of it.
Unless you want to intentionally run that in the background.
Got it.
So what you could say is like, hey, I just want to send back all the messages. I don't care if this insert is done or not. You could achieve that by taking this await off. But now you're running a gamble that this insert query has not finished running in the database, so that when you send back all your messages, this insert may not be finished yet. So this code would run, this wouldn't throw an error, but it wouldn't do what you expected because it wouldn't show that new message in there. So that's why we want to do our await there. But that is the power of async and await, is once you wrap your head around that fully, you can get into some tricky stuff about saying, hey, I do want this to run in the background, but I don't want it to hold up the user. And that's a totally valid thing to do in your JavaScript.
Got it. Thank you very much.
No problem. I like those hard questions. They make me think of how to formulate the answer to convey the knowledge.
You explained it well. So yeah, good job.
Jordan, what's up?
So my zip was taking a while to start up before that for some reason to download. I am like slightly caught up, but I did not understand how to get it to stop crashing because it says app crashed.
Did you do your npm installs on both the front end and the back end?
I believe I did. Let me try. Weird.
You might be getting app crashed if you haven't updated to the stuff that we did today. Like, have you done? You might have added the stuff we did yesterday, but where we left off yesterday, we left off with it crashing. So you might be getting that crashed, and then we kind of did stuff to change that to that.
Yeah, 23 to 42 of my code is everything that we changed to prevent the crash.
Okay. Also, I did not install on the front end.
That could be another problem.
It was. Thank you.
No problem. If you're still stuck at the next check-in, let me know and I can zip you through. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to refresh the front end, and notice my ABC message popped in there from the last time. Well, why did that show up? Because my insert wasn't the problem. My insert was actually working. The problem was my send messages wasn't sending back all the messages that I wanted it to. So I come over here, I'm going to send one more. I'm going to say 1, 2, 3. I hit send. My 1, 2, 3 shows up. And not only does it show up, but I'm going to crack open my beekeeper. And I'm going to go into my local database. And now I need to change my dropdown up at the top. I need to change that to chat, so I'm in the right spot. And now you can see my messages in here. Now, the cool thing about Beekeeper is we have edit access as well. So what if a user comes to you and goes, oh, this 1, 2, 3 message, I meant to have that as a received message for whatever reason. I don't know why you would, but you could come in here, modify this to false, but keep in mind that you have to hit apply down at the bottom. Once we hit apply, that change will actually go through. So when I go back over to my front end and refresh, notice my 1, 2, 3 jumps over onto the other side. That's because we've got our full data integration here. We're not only passing the information from the back end, from the database into the back end, but the back end is passing that to our React front end. Our React front end is updating state. And because that state is integrated into our return, into our re-render, it is showing it in the correct place.
Did you just type in your text in the my messages, like on localhost?
I just on here, I just typed in ABC or 123 and I hit send.
Okay, in the webpage. Great.
Yep.
Now it should update in my beekeeper, shouldn't it? I have
It
to refresh
should, but don't forget that refresh down at the bottom.
Well, that's interesting. It just added in a toodaloo that I wrote in way earlier today.
That's
it-
fine. It's probably just catching up because our server was crashing over here.
It didn't update my 123 though.
Share your screen. Let's take a look.
It's weird.
Oh, I can't. You can't share your screen. Now you can share your screen.
Okay.
Okay, so let me request remote. And we're just gonna refresh everything out to be safe. Okay, now we're gonna go to, am I going in the right direction? No, I'm not. We're gonna go to, yeah, where's your webpage?
Make it smaller.
Ah, there we go. Thank you. Okay, so let me refresh this. And right off the bat, I'm getting bad vibes because this is still loading and we're not getting your database messages in there. So I'm going to go over to your code and I'm going to look, and your server says it's running, but I don't love that this is grayed out. This means we didn't update down here to call the send messages.
Oh shoot. Okay, well, I missed that then. Okay.
So we're going to drop that in there, and we're also going to drop it in here. And that should reboot our server, but just to play it safe, I'm going to start it. Oh, nope, we got another issue. See, when I ran start, it did node server.js. That isn't the start that we want to run. What we want to run is the new start that we added into our package.json. So we told it, hey, start is going to do our npx nodemon server.js.
Oh, that's so weird. I had that yesterday. I remember doing that.
All right. Now, when we started up, we got our nodemon. That's feeling good. When we refresh over here. Okay, not so good. Let's see, did we crash the back end? We did crash the back end on client is not defined. You may have copied the wrong day here. Well, maybe not. You're missing, do you have PG installed? Yeah, so you're a couple steps behind here of stuff we did yesterday. We installed PG and then we imported Postgres from PG.
I think I opened the wrong one.
Let's see, if I right click and reveal in Finder, it will show me we are in your chat full stack.
That's the right one.
Okay, then let's just do one more. I think you're almost caught up here. We say const client equals a new Postgres client. And we tell it to use the database called chat. And then we do our client.connect. And now it should be talking to the database. So when we refresh over here, we still get nothing. Because I forgot to start the server after I did my install. Okay, now it's up and running. We refresh and you've got everything in there. And if we send ABC and hit send, your ABC shows up. And if we go to Beekeeper and refresh, I thought we had it. We were so close. This post is missing the insert. Do you have a live share open in my code?
Mm-hmm.
I would just copy your line 32 there should line up with my line 20 should line up with my line 38.
38. Okay.
And then after that one, you should be caught up and back in business. It was a long one. Sorry, I didn't want to type it out by hand, but that's what's doing the actual insert into the database. All right, so we're in our code and we're feeling good because we've got our messages reading. Okay, that's cool. And we've got our messages inserting, which is also called creating. That's our C and our R. What other two database operations do we need to do to finish all database operations?
Update and delete.
Update and delete. Now, it's worth noting that not all apps require all four of those interactions. Some messages apps won't let you update the message. They want that message to be set in stone. Most messages app will let you delete that message, but it won't delete on the other person's device. For our app, just for the sake of getting all four of those create, read, update, and deletes working, we are going to add in our edit and delete buttons here. So in order to do that, I'm going to switch back to my front end code. I'm going to go into my SRC, into my messages list, and I'm going to go down to any sent message, because hypothetically, I don't want other people to be able to edit any messages that I've received. I only want to let them edit or delete messages that I've sent. So I'm going to come down here and right under this timestamp, I'm going to throw another div in there and let's call it actions. And I'm going to put in 2 spans. Again, I'm in my messages list file under my sent message component. So I'm going to do edit. And then I'm going to do a little bar with a space on either side and do another space span and say delete. And when I pop that open in my browser, I've got my edit and delete there, but they're huge. So maybe let's clean that up a little bit. Let's say, hey, in my index.css, not my index, I'm sorry, my app.css, let me try and split screen this so you guys can see both things at once. I am going to make my color and my font size and my margin top also apply to my actions. And that cleaned that up a little bit. Let's say on my actions, I want to take the margin top off of that. So let's say 0. That pulls it in a little bit. That's feeling a little bit nicer. Let's say that when we hover over the actions, when we hover over a span in the actions, let's do a text decoration of underline and a cursor of pointer. So I come back over here. Whoops, when we hover over it, we now get a nice little underline, and you notice my cursor changes a little bit. We're getting better on our UX a little bit there. I can say, hey, on any message, the message text should have some margin on the top of it of 10 pixels. That was still not enough. Of 20 pixels? Nope, I'm not in the right spot. What contains my message text is in a col 10. Why didn't that work? Excuse me, margin. Why do you not want to apply my margin? Okay, fine. Can we do, oh, because it's in an inline, because it's in a span. What happens if I change this to a div? Aha. Okay. Oh, but now that's breaking my width. Okay, abort. Bad example. We're just gonna deal with it being on top of each other. We'll fix it later. So we've got our edit and our delete buttons showing up, and I'm pretty happy with that from a user interface perspective. So we added this div in our sent message for our edit and our delete buttons. We then went into our actions and said, hey, apply all the same styling as the timestamp, except we want no margin top on the actions. And then for the span, when we hover over it, when that span is inside the actions class, we are able to put text decoration on it and cursor pointer. All of that pulled off this little styling right here so that when we hover over either one of them, we can see it.
Could you show me that again, please?
In the browser or in the code? Yep. We've got a little edit and delete buttons there. And if we hover over them, we get the cursor and we get a little underline on them.
Okay, let's see.
And that is, we added it to our HTML here, and then we styled it in our CSS here, here, and here.
Okay, great. And they're still squished, but you said we're gonna wait on that.
Yeah, I've got to wrestle with, I think we can pull it off if we add a message row here. We can target our message row and put some margin on the top of it of 15 pixels. There we go. I can CSS. To fix that, I put a message row class on here, and then over here, I put a margin top of 10 px. I can feel my UI designer and developer screaming at me from a couple states away for using that fix. But you know what? It works.
Max,
Yes.
how did that change? That's weird. You changed yours and mine changed,
Oh, I can fix that.
which was cool, but why did that happen?
Sometimes when I start a live share, it likes to take my 3000 and put it on your 3000. That has now been stopped.
Okay. I was just like, that's some weird magic. Okay.
All right. So we've got our interface in here. Now we get full stack, right? We say, all right, what happens when they click on the edit button? So we're going to say on click, edit clicked. Okay. Now what happens when our edit is clicked? We need to come up to inside the same component. If we put it out here, it's going to be confused, right? This sent message, even though it is part of the messages list file, we have 3 different components here. We've got our messages list, we've got our received message, and we've got our sent message. So we want to localize or scope this edit clicked function into our sent message. So we say const edit clicked is going to get the event. And what's it going to do? Well, we should event prevent default. I don't think we'll need that because I don't think we're in a form, but play it safe. Tell the browser, stop whatever you're going to do. I want control of this. Now we go, all right, how do we get our message to edit? What do we need to do in order to get our message edited?
We need to connect to the database.
We sure do. And how do we do that? What function?
Do we use the client?
We can't use the client because we're on the front end.
Oh,
We've got to do a fetch to the back end to tell it to update. So we're going to say const response equals await. And I go, before I even go any further on my await, I'm going to put my async up here. And I'm going to say await a fetch to localhost 3001, because we know that's where our server is, to the messages. And we're like, but I don't want to post a new message. I want to run an update query over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it, hey, the method I'm going to use is a put. And what information do I want to send with it? I would like to send in some JSON. In order to do that, I need to pass my headers with my content type of application JSON. And if you're wondering, my God, Max, how do you remember all of this? I don't. I go find another fetch that I've done somewhere else and copy and paste it and then modify it to what I need. Every single time. It's taken me 4 cohorts to get this memorized, and I use it all the time in almost every application that I make. So don't feel like you're cheating if you go find another fetch that we've done in this code and use it over here. That's totally fine. Although, if you want the practice of typing it all out and making sure you understand piece by piece, that's totally cool. Okay.
Pause for a second.
Yep.
These things, I just want to catch up on code real quick.
Sure. We're primarily focused in on, we put an on click on our edit clicked here, and then we wrote a bunch of code in our edit clicked on 49 through 62.
Huh. And I just grabbed it from your, maybe that's what it doesn't like. One sec. I have one warning. What's my warning?
I have a warning as well,
Response is assigned.
but not defined, but
Yeah.
not used. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Great. I'm caught up.
Cool.
Thank you.
Anyone else need another minute? Yep. Now we haven't tested this code. There's nothing that I can say quite yet to say, okay, if everything is working, this should be happening. And that's a consequence of full stack, right? In order to get something working, we need all those puzzle pieces together. And so it's a little tricky to pull that off.
Yeah, there's just a couple of stuff with the CSS part that I missed. So I was just looking over that real quick.
Sure. The CSS that we added, we did a comma and we put in actions in here. Then we did our actions and our hover and put in the margin, the text decoration, and the cursor. We also put in a message row up here to fix the margin on the top. And then we did a message row over in our HTML and added in our div actions with our on click for edit and delete.
Okay, so that's what I was missing. All right, just one moment, please.
Sure.
Since we're in catch up, do you want to explain the difference between JSON in all caps and then JSON in lowercase, or is there no difference?
Are you talking about this JSON versus this JSON?
Yep.
Sure, I can do that. So this is called a MIME type, MIME. It stands for multimedia something something, multimedia internet. I have no idea. I'm pulling that out of my ass. It's an acronym for something, and it's basically a defined standard for all these different content types that every server can agree upon. So if I say, hey, this is application JSON on my front end and send it to a Python backend, it doesn't matter if it goes to Python or Ruby or whatever it is, because they all use that MIME standard. It knows what application/JSON is. As far as I know, all MIME types are all lowercase. However, when we talk about JSON, JSON itself is an acronym, right? JavaScript Object Notation. And JSON is actually built into the browser, is built into the JavaScript engine. So if you're like, well, how does it know what const is? Same way it knows what JSON is, it's just a function that is built into the browser itself. So when we use JSON, the functions, the things built into the JavaScript, we use it in all caps. But for MIME types, we use it in all lowercase because I believe all MIME types are lower. And if all of them are not, I know for a fact application JSON is.
Ryan went over in MIMEs with us, so I was aware of that. It was just I thought cap JSON, and then the other one are the same. So thank you.
I mean, they're both referencing the same thing. We're giving context to it. We're saying in the headers, hey, whatever we're sending in is JSON, but then the JavaScript function in particular to actually get access to Stringify is JSON in all caps.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Casing is always one of those weird things because it either really, really matters or it doesn't, and people are very opinionated about it. So keep the casing questions coming, because there are certain things that I do where you may see another developer not do it, and that's a perfect time to ask, like, why do you do that? You know, is that personal preference? Is that because your company does it, or is that because the computer really needs it as that? Brandon, you need help?
Oh, no, I'm all set now. Thanks.
Okay, cool. Everyone good?
Mhm.
Okay, so now we got to figure out what we're sending to the back end. Well, we're trying to edit a message. What's kind of important if you're editing a message, you got to know what you're editing the messages to, right? Well, that could be a pain because we don't really have an interface for editing the message. When I click on edit here, I'm like, how do I edit that message? I could put a text input in here and put in a save button, but that's a lot of interface work. And if you're really into React and you're really into design, that's totally the way to go. But we're totally going to cheat here. And instead, we're going to say const edited message content is equal to window.prompt. And window.prompt is kind of cool because you can say, what do you want the message edited to? And save that. And now when we go back over to our browser and click the edit button, we get this lovely pop-up. It's a little text field, and we can just say test and hit OK. And now that information is stored in our edited message content. Okay. Now we can send that information in, right? We can say, hey, our new content is equal to our edited message content. Okay. Now there's a little issue with everything we're doing here. We can't test any of this out because if I go to the browser and I look in my console, when I click on edit and type ABC in and hit OK, I get a 404 messages not found. Like, what do you mean 404? So I come over here and I'm like, here's my message. And it's it's inserting. And you know what? It's a post. What did we do on our front end? We did a put. Why did we do a put? Because we need an entirely separate endpoint for our put. So we do our put message. Message should be singular in your front end. Do not make that mistake. Should be singular because we're editing one message in particular. So over here, we're going to go back into our put and we're going to say, hey, there's going to be an async rec res. Why is it async? Because I know I'm about to do a database query. Okay, now what database query do I want? Well, I know I want to send all the messages back because we need to do that at any point. We always need to res.send something. So now I get to write my query. So I do my await client.query. And what query do I want to run? I want to do an update. And that's about as much as I can remember. So I go SQL W3 schools update. And I get my little reference. And it says update table name. Okay, my table name is messages. And I want to set. And then I go, oh, nope, memory's failing me too. Go back to Beekeeper. It's called text in the database. So I'm going to say, okay, set my text equal to oh, come on, Max. There we go. To what text do I want to update it to? I've got to go back to my front end code. We called it content. That is in my body. So I'm going to come over here and say to my rec.body.content. Going to take a break in 1 minute. We go to our browser. We go to test all of this out. I'm going to click edit. I'm going to type in 1, 2, 3. I'm going to hit OK. And I get this lovely failed to fetch. That is because when I did my send messages, our send messages needs access to the response. And I forgot to include the response in here. So let's try that again. I refresh. Oh, Lordy. Every single one of my messages is equal to 1, 2, 3. Something went wrong there, but I want to give you guys a chance to test this. So if everything is working, well, working to some degree, you should be able to go to your browser, hit the edit button, type in some message, hit OK. And when you refresh the page, and only when you refresh the page, should you see all of your messages set to 1, 2, 3. The main blocks of code that we did there are in this server.put in the back end, and they are also in the edit clicked that we're working on in the front end. So I'm going to try and leave both of those up for you guys and give you a minute just to catch up. Sorry, can't fit quite everything on my screen, but do the best. What's that?
the rectangle thing where it snaps it for you.
Well, I'm trying to position it so that you've got enough room to see the text over here.
And second question, the capital words in the orange, that's a sequel?
This is, yes, we're writing SQL there. Most of you guys have voted in. Does anyone need help?
I do. I voted too quickly.
For anyone who does have it working, try and do a trace path, right? Try and understand how all these dots are connecting together. So we did our edited messages content. Scroll up just a tad. We did not call it edited message content in our prompt. We called it edited message content.
It was. I think that was it.
So that should hopefully fix it. We click the edit button.
I don't have an edit. I gotta fix something there.
Yeah, you do. Go to your front end.
Ooh, okay.
And go down to where your delete is, which is going to be in this file a little further down. You just need the word edit in that first span tag. On 82. In that span tag, just put no, in the tag between the two tags. Yep, there.
Got it. There it is.
And while you're in there, lowercase your L in onClick. And now you can click on your edit and type in 1, 2, 3 or whatever. And hit OK. And now when you refresh the page, did not do anything. Let's go to your backend.
I know I'm missing something. I don't know what. There was something I missed. Couldn't catch up.
In your await send messages, the parameter there needs a res inside of it.
That's where it was. Because I was looking up here when you had corrected yours, and I was like, yeah, I'm good.
All right, save, head back to refresh. Edit. Type something in. Okay. and refresh. Something still is off. Let me request remote. I'm going to go to your front end code and just do a quick pass by there. Edit clicked. You've got your edit clicked.
Was I supposed to change the method here from put to post?
It's supposed to be put. The problem is we're putting just one message. So I think that was your problem. Refresh. Okay. Okay. Refresh.
Mm,
You are all caught up.
okay.
Yes, all of your messages say that.
Thank you. All right. Oh,
Anyone else need help? All right. Got one more fix to do before break. So I'm in here and I'm like, all right, everything is updating. I don't want it to update everything, but I'm looking at my database query and I'm like, update messages set text. How does it know what message I want to update? It doesn't. And so what SQL is doing is it's updating every single message for me. My entire message history just got wiped out. There is no edit undo for a mistake on this scale. So we can recover from that. That's fine. It's not a big deal, but it's not a big deal in this case. Whenever you write an update statement, before you can run it, make sure you've got some where in there.
Mm.
So we're going to fix that. We're going to say where, and then I'm like, well, where what? I'm going to go look at my database. And in my beekeeper, I have this ID column. And I'm like, that's cool. Yeah, let's use that. Where the ID is equal to, where's our ID? Oh, that's fine. You know what? Our front end has the ID, right? I'm going to come over here and I'm looking at my message and I've got my text and my timestamp and I've got no ID. All right, let me go up. This is my sent message. Let me scroll up a little bit more. And in my sent message, I have access to the message itself. Well, that message hypothetically is coming from our database. So if I console log that message out and go to my front end, I can now see all of my messages have an ID. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that's cool. So what I need to do is I have access to the ID up here in my messages list, but I don't have access to it in my sent message. So what I need to do is pass down the ID via a prop. So up in my messages list, I'm going to include one more prop called ID that is going to include the message.id. I am then going to go down to my sent message. And because I'm passing in the props here, when I make my API call, I can pass in the message.id. I'm putting that in as a route param. So up at the top, I added a new prop to my sent message called ID, message ID. Then down in my sent message, I added a new template literal variable called message ID that is coming in, whoops, from my props. My bad. That should say props.id, not message.id. Now, over in my backend, I need to tell it, hey, in my route, I'm going to get the ID. That colon is telling it, hey, there is a param coming in there called ID. and I want to use that ID in my rec.params.id. So I'm going to save. I'm going to go back to my browser. I'm going to refresh. I have no idea why that just happened. I'm going to try editing and say ABC. I hit OK. And when I refresh, my ABC message is there and it is now on the bottom. Do something. We are going to. Why did that happen? Did it update 23.26 is yesterday? We'll fix that in a second. What you should be able to do now in your browser, if all your code is working, is to click on edit on any sent message, type in something new, hit OK, and when you hit that refresh button, you should see the message content is now updated. That's where we're gonna break. If you have your code running, if you've got your edit button working, you're good to go. Go on break. If you don't, I'm going to stick around. I will post the time break is over in chat. It will probably be 7:25 or 7:30, but want to give everyone a couple minutes before we set the break time. So our code that we've updated, one more review. In our sent message, we included the ID as a message.id prop. We sent that information into the sent message props that we included in our URL as a route param. We then switched over to our backend, added in the ID as a route param here so that we could use it in our where query as the params.id to only update that one message that we want to update in the database. If all of that is working, you can go to Chrome, you can click on edit on any message, you can type in a new message, you can hit the OK button, and when you hit refresh in the browser, you should see that message is updated. You do, you can go on break. If not, take a couple more minutes. Don't worry, we're not even into break time yet.
Question. When I was learning just regular SQL, and then you know how there's like Postgres and like the other.
MS SQL, Oracle,
Yeah.
MySQL.
So yeah, exactly. So do they have like specific keywords or whatever specific to those things?
They do. So SQL was created to kind of unify all databases so that you could use a standardized or structured query that would be the same on all of them. However, over time, they have developed slight modifications. So in Postgres, you can use serial as a keyword, but serial may not be supported in other variants. So there are slight differences between the two of them, but between any of them. But for the most part, the command structure is going to be the same. You're always going to have select, update, delete, drop, create table, all of those. Definitely differences between the two of them, but for the most part, they should be pretty standardized.
And what are they known? Like, are they defined as like frameworks or like what's their name?
They're known as different SQL variants or different SQL servers.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Kalai.
I see the browser, Max.
Sure. Things are a little out of order, but what should be happening is you can click edit, type something in, hit OK. And when you refresh the screen, you should see that that message is now updated.
Okay.
If you do have it working, take a couple minutes, read back through it. We wrote a lot of code in the past hour and a half. You don't have it working and you feel like you are about to start crying blood, raise your hand and I can help you. Jordan, I will come to you in a minute. I've been to the crying blood stage before. It's not fun. In fact, we actually have that as a custom emoji at our work.
That's excellent.
There's so many times that I go to use an emoji in the Hack Upstate Slack and I'm like, damn it, that's a custom one. And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess table flip is not loaded in everywhere.
Good.
Kalai,
Can you check mine, Max?
go for it.
Is Artrell first? I don't know whether he raised the hand first.
No, you're good. It goes in order. It queues everyone up, which is why I love the raise feature. Raise hand feature. My God. Okay. So click on the edit button. Okay, type ABC and hit OK. And then refresh.
It's not doing it.
Okay, so let me request remote. So your back end is over here and it doesn't know what the ID is in the params because we need to include the ID up in the route.
Okay.
So if we refresh and do our edit and do A, B, C and hit OK. Now when we refresh, we've got our ABC down here at the bottom and we're good to go.
So is that not change the one which we are editing?
It is changing the right one, but it's not sorting these messages properly, which we're going to fix after the break.
Okay, sure.
Artrell.
Okay. I think the code is up to speed, but when I hover over delete, right? And I click it, I don't get my little drop down box.
Because we didn't implement delete, we implemented edit.
All right, so I'm going to edit. Then the box. Okay. Let's see. Now enter. Now, where am I supposed to see it on the screen, Max?
If you refresh it, down at the bottom of your messages, you should see whatever you edited to. Nope.
As the last message.
Share your screen.
All right. It failed. Screen sharing.
Try it again.
All right. Screen sharing has failed to start. Please try again. Error code 105035.
Screen sharing really hates you, doesn't it?
It does.
Let me try to share and then stop it. See if that ungunks the works. Try it now.
Okay. Nope.
All right. Do you have any errors in your backend terminal?
Let's see. Um, no, none are showing.
Try
In the VS
leaving.
Code, at least in the VS Code, it doesn't show anything. It just says it's running report 3001.
Try leaving the Zoom meeting, quitting out of Zoom entirely, and then reopening it and seeing if that does anything.
All right.
Brandon.
I just have a couple error messages. I'm
Sure.
not sure where I'm looking. Let me share on the back end.
That's your front end.
Or yeah, that.
Let me request remote. Oh. Your messages list, you're sending in your ID. However, it's confused on line 18. Why is it confused on your line 18? Received message is not defined. Yes, it is. It's defined right here. Oops, it was defined right there. We've got something wrong. If else that closes, that closes. What? Oh, that was an old error. As
Oh,
soon
am I
as I
looking?
saved it, it went away. Okay, so let me go down to here. And this one shouldn't have props in it because you're getting the message directly. So this one should be message.timestamp. And now you're back in business because props comes in here and passes your props.id.
Okay.
So you must have had something old up here or added props to the wrong spot.
Okay, gotcha.
So that should take care of it if you want to test it in the browser.
Yep. Well, yeah, I was able to test it a bit earlier, but then I saw that there were some errors and I was like, well, let's see what's going on there.
You're good to go.
Sweet, thank you.
Arturo, you want to try a screen share?
Yes, please. All right. So screen share.
Cross your fingers, cross your toes, cross everything that you can. Try a full out reboot. I don't know what to tell you because it's working for everyone else.
Like reboot the whole computer?
Yeah,
Ah.
sorry.
Well, you know, I'll just keep going and I'll reboot after class and all that, and then I'll show you tomorrow.
Well, we're about to take a break, so maybe that is a good time to reboot. Does anyone else have questions before I get with Jordan?
Just one.
Yeah.
I have let messages text received from back end, but you don't. Was that something we did at one point and then erased? It's in the back end.
Yep.
If for you, it would be around. There you go. It would be just above Hello World and after Client Connect. I don't have it. I have it, you don't.
Totally possible that I deleted that. Yes.
Okay, so I'll just get rid of it. Okay, thank you. That's
Go on break, be back at I cannot do math at 7:35. Jordan, give me. Okay. Let me close out of a couple of these tabs. Okay, so where we left off was in my in our messages app. When I refresh, all of a sudden our messages are out of order. And if I edit one of these, the 456 message, and make it 1, 2, 3 and hit OK, then I refresh the screen. That's the right one that changed, but they're all kind of shuffled. And that's not great, because if we go in Beekeeper and I look in here, the messages are still in the right order, right? The order that we sent them is all right. So you would think we could fix this by sorting by the timestamp, but in fact, there's an even more efficient way of sorting it. We sort it by the ID. The reason why it's more efficient to sort by the ID is we're only comparing one number here compared to a complex data format with the dates. So you could sort by timestamp, that's totally fine. But what we're going to do is in our send messages function, we're going to modify this select from messages and say order by ID ascending. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to go back to my front end and refresh, and now our message order is back to the order that we want it to be in. All we had to do is add this order by ascending as part of our send messages function. Okay, that's nice, but we also have another problem. When I edit my message to 456 and hit OK, it should automatically update. And if we look in our backend code, when we get our response here, we don't do anything with it. Well, what could we do with it? We could say, hey, the data from the response is response.json. And we can console log out our data. And when I edit a message now and say 456, I get my messages array. And it even has that updated message for me. So I'm like, okay, how can I get my React code to use all of these messages that are getting sent back from the backend? Well, let's look at where we already do that. We already do that in app.js. Here's our API call. It's getting the messages, getting the JSON, and it's setting the messages in for us. The problem is the same problem that we had with ID down in our sent message. We needed the props ID, and we didn't have access to that in sent message. We only had access to that in our messages list. Well, we've got the same problem going on. We don't have access to set messages inside our messages list. We only have access to the messages themselves. So in order to fix that, we take our set messages and we pass that in via a prop. So our set messages function here is getting passed into our messages list. Giving everyone a minute to add that because we're switching between multiple files here. So in my app.js, in my messages list, where I have that component being returned, I added my set messages right here. If I have that added, now when I go back to my messages list, I not only have the messages, but I have a new prop called set messages. And now that I have access to that prop, I can use that to send it in to my sent message. So we're passing this prop all the way down. Not sent, set messages is equal to my set messages. So we're doing some prop passing here. We're starting with the set messages function from our use state. It's going down into messages list right here. Once we get into the messages list, we get our set messages here that we pass one final level down into our sent message. Yes, Jennifer.
Just trying to figure out where we started.
In our app.js, this was the first one we added.
Set messages, okay.
Now, if you have it here, you can move on to your messages list where we updated the incoming prop so it knows what set messages is.
No, I did something wrong here. Hold on. Put that in curly braces, and then it's happy. And now I'm going where?
Messages list, we're adding in our set messages up at the top.
Under the div.
At the very top, line number 1. At messages list, not at sent message.
Oh, I thought we were still in app.js.
Oh, no, sorry. We switched over to messages list.
Okay, there it is. All right, so I'm in messages. Const message list. Oh, shoot. Your little following Max Matthews thing is like in my way.
Line number 1 and line number 16.
What's different about line number 1? I can't see it.
We added in set messages.
Okay, instead of just messages.
Correct. Put a comma and said set messages.
How am I gonna see that? That's driving me nuts.
It's on the Zoom screen share if that's easier.
Yeah, there we go.
And then finally, we put our set messages down on line 16 as well. And now that we've done all of that work, all the way down in our sent message, we now can say, hey, do a props.set messages to the data.messages. Okay, so when we're in our browser and I refresh, I can go to my message, I can type in whatever I want, I hit OK, and I get my 1, 2, 3 update automatically. Or edit, I can click on any one, I can type in my new message, I can hit OK on that, get my new message to update. Stopping there for a poll, letting you guys keep up. And there were a couple edits that we did there. We started all the way up in our app.js. We added this new prop called set messages. Now, why did we do that? Because our messages are all the way up in our app component. But we need to be able to update those messages all the way down in the sent message. How do we get there? We have our set messages here. That sends it into messages list. Messages lists, we add it as a prop up at the top. But the problem is we need to be able to set those messages down in the sent message as well. So we send it one level deeper. It's app message then sent. So we take our set messages and we pass that in as a prop into our sent messages. Now that we're all the way down there in our set message, because we passed it in as a prop, we are able to use our props.set messages. What are we setting them to? We're setting them to the messages that came from the backend.
Hey, Max, I just kind of have a general question. So I understand that I won't say it's the most important thing of what just happened, but I understand that the use state is what prompts the page to reload. What if, so in the original use effect that's in app.js, what if we were to put in that dependency array, what if we were to put message list in there? Like, would it then run that use effect every time the message list updated, or like what would that do?
No, the only thing that you can put into this array is a JavaScript variable. So you can't use a component in there, because otherwise you would kind of have a secular, secular? That's not the right word. It would loop over itself. When the
Okay.
messages list would first show up, it would make the API call. When the API call got made, it would go update messages list. Messages list would be updated, so it would go run the use effect to run the API call, and you would get called in a circular reference. That's what I was looking for. And so the only thing that you can put in this is a JavaScript variable. That can be something in state, but yeah, you can't put like a component itself directly in the dependency array.
Okay, I was just curious. Thank you.
I'm gonna run through it one more time. Yes, it would be an infinite recursive loop melt throughout as well. Any in Excel they call it a circular reference, because one thing is referencing one thing that references that thing, that same thing. But it would be a recursive loop in JavaScript. Yes, that's definitely the right word.
And that kind of, not to drag this on, but that now kind of makes sense. When on my capstone, I had a state variable in the dependency array, and it kept I kept getting an error that it was looping infinite
Infinitely.
loop, something to that effect. So yeah, that would explain why. Okay, thank you very much.
No
Thanks,
problem.
Melton.
All right, I'm going to run through it one more time because I had a huge drop off in the check-ins. We've got our set messages. We already had that. We added our set messages into our messages list as a prop. Set messages equals set messages. We then take this set messages, we go into our messages list, and we add in our set messages here. Now that we've got our set messages, we're coming down to our sent message, and we're passing in the set messages one more time. Now that we've got that passed all the way down into our set message, we are able to use that set messages prop in order to take the messages coming back from the back end and set it in so that it's updated. We're going to do two more things tonight, and we're going to call it. Your homework, which I haven't posted yet, is going to be to get the delete button to work. However, I'm not going to drop you in the deep end and just set you off there. We're going to leave a couple notes to get you started there. What we're going to need to do, and this is called pseudocoding, right? This is kind of planning out what needs to be done before we actually do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, we need, and I'm going to tag all of these with HW so you guys know. HW number 1, add on click to delete span. Okay. 2, we need to make delete function. Okay, reference your edit clicked. That's going to be your guide. Number 3, we need to make fetch with method delete that includes the prop ID in URL. Then we're going to come back over to our backend and we're going to say, hey, just like our put, we need to homework number 4, create server.delete function that has same path as put function above. Okay, we're going to reference this exact line, except we're going to do a delete instead. Okay, now what do we do next? We write our SQL query that deletes the row where the ID matches the params ID. Okay, then what do we do next? We send back all messages using existing function. Okay, we know our send messages is here. Now what do we do with that? We come back to our front end and we say, update parse JSON. And number 8, update state props using set messages and the data from number 7. So now that we've pseudo-coded that out, take a minute to read these numbers. Does anything in here not make sense? Do you feel like if you read these notes, you could go write that code based off of the existing code in our put and the existing code in our edit clicked? Take a minute to read through those. I'm going to post them into the live stream right now.
Max, after you post them, can you unhighlight them, please?
Yep.
Thank you.
What may be helpful for you to do right now is to take these numbers and place them in up here. Understand, hey, this step is very similar to a step up here. What make delete function lines up with the code up here? Oh, that's our edit clicked function. So I'm going to mirror whatever is here for when I create my delete down here. How are we feeling? The good news is I have nothing more for you to code for the rest of the evening. The bad news is I am not letting you go 30 minutes early. I'm giving you an in-class assignment. I would like you in the next 10 to 30 minutes to come up with something for me on the spot to show me that you understand how the edit function works that we coded out tonight. You can work in a group if you would like. Let me know. I can throw you in a breakout room. You can do a diagram. You can write a paragraph. You can comment your code. You can do a interpretive dance for me of how this all works. I mean, it's really up to you. But I want all of you guys right now to go through the code that we've done tonight. And like I said, fine to work in a group on this. But go ahead and take this code, figure out how you understand it, and then create some method of communicating your understanding. A paragraph, inline comments, a diagram, even if it's hand-drawn, whatever you're thinking, show me, tell me that you understand how edit works from the front end to the back end to the database, and then round tripping it all the way through. And if you finish early, of course, you can get out of here early. And if anyone wants to go in a group or a breakout room, I can also do that.
Okay, now could you please repeat what you want us to tell you?
I want you to convey that you understand how the edit function works that we created tonight. How the edit feature, I should say, works. And so you can do that by writing a paragraph. You could do that by opening Google Doc and just numbering out steps. You could do that by making a diagram either on paper or on diagrams.net. You could...
I'm gonna do the interpretive dance, I think.
Okay. Copyright free music is requested just for the sake of the recording, but other than that, go crazy.
Okay.
There was a huge uproar like 2 or 3 years ago in the figure skating community because the Olympic Committee finally allowed them to use like production music, like real copyrighted music, and figure skating just completely changed because they were allowed to skate to Beyonce or like whatever they wanted.
It's like Blades of Glory all over again.
Oh, exactly. Artrell, what's up?
All right, so remember I couldn't get my screen sharing to work, but I did see my error in the console.
Yep.
I had one, now I have two, but the first error, it says it had to do with the put. I got a 404 not found from my messages list.
So your 404 not found is probably going to be around the line 46 of my code. So make sure that in addition to your post message, you also have a server.put with this message ID going on here.
And that's what I potentially could be missing. So let me check. All right, so 46. All right, I see what yours says. Hold on, let me go to mine, Max, just bear with me. All right, so all right, server put message. I don't have the colon ID.
There you go. See, even without being able to see your screen, I can still fix your problem.
Right, I think at least give you enough information, right? All right, so now I'm gonna see if it works if I try to edit something. Nope, still getting a not found. Then I get a uncaught and promised syntax error, unexpected token, doc type is not valid JSON. So
Okay, so on your front end, where you've got the put request, which is my messages list line 61,
Right, mine's slightly different, but yes, I'm there.
Do you have a S after the word message?
No,
Do you have your props.id with your curly braces?
yes,
Do you want to attempt screen sharing again to see if it works?
yes. All right, let me hold my hand real quick. All right.
When you guys feel like you've got that level of understanding, you can either Slack it to me, or you can do it live with your in front of your other students to see if what your understanding is helps unlock an understanding for someone else.
Didn't
No.
work.
Okay, one more thing I want to try. I can request control. I don't think it will work, but we can give it a try. No.
Nope, same error code 105035.
105.
035, the 6-digit code.
Um,
I was just getting ready to do an internet search in that too.
now they're all like super technical. You can start a live share with me and send me the link and I can pull it up that way.
All right, do I have to do it for each, like one for front end and one for back end?
Ooh, yes.
So what are you going to start with? The front end?
Sure.
All right, so I'm going to hit share. Okay. Invitation link, copy to clipboard, send it to. So I'm gonna just go to click on your name.
Yep.
All right. I clicked your name. Let me know if that does anything.
Oh, it's go to Slack and paste the link in your clipboard to me in there.
Okay. Yeah. I hope this is yours. I hope it's mine and not yours. If it's not mine, I'll try it again.
Why did it not?
That might have been yours.
No, it. Oh, here we go. Open in VS Code. Open in VS Code. Go.
Oh, looks like you joined a collaboration session.
I'm in. All right. Your fetch, your props.id. You passed in your message ID. All right. The bad news is nothing looks wrong here, so I need your back end as well.
Okay. So we're gonna hit that. We're gonna share. Come back here. Come here. Command V. All right.
You are missing the slash before the ID. Right here. Line 34. You did not have that
message
slash
slash.
in there.
Oh, wait, before the ID.
Mm-hmm.
On line 30. Okay, so message slash colon ID. All right. So now see if they works.
Mhm.
All right, so I'm gonna hit refresh. Edit. Now everything on my sign says request.body.content.
Where does it say that?
So in my messages, right? When I hit edit and I went into the drop down box and I typed in what I want to type in,
Yep.
all my messages now have the
Oh, okay. So that is in here.
are you in the front end or the back end?
I'm in the back end. You had curly brace. You had parentheses instead of curly braces. So we use our template literal here. Those should be our curly braces.
All right. So I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna refresh.
Oh, and we also need to include, sorry, one more here, where our ID equals our rec.params.id.
Yeah, I totally missed that in your code.
That is what is preventing it from, that's what fixed it from updating every single message.
How did I miss that in yours? I don't remember you seeing that on yours anyway. Unless I didn't scroll out. Huh. Okay. I don't know. I had all right, so let me hit refresh. All right, they all still say the request. They're still all the template literals. So
That's fine. Edit it again, and whatever one you edit should now have the right content.
all right, let's see. Now it's working.
Good to go. Good work.
Thanks. Max Wizardry wins again.
As soon as you feel like you have that level of understanding, you can Slack me whatever you're thinking of or send me a picture. And then you are off the hook for the evening. Or if you're a couple steps in and feel like you're stuck, feel like you're looping, feel like you don't know where we did something or why we did that thing, This is your chance to ask questions.
Okay, so Max, I have some questions.
Mhm.
I mean, I understand that when a user needs to edit, we created the div with an edit span,
Mhm.
the front end, in the messages list. Once the person didn't unclick to edit the message content, we had to JSON stringify to put it back into the database. But what I don't get is how is the edited messages ID'd? I don't see a reference in the front end.
That is our props.id right here.
Here you have messages list. What line are you?
I'm on 59 of my code in messages list in the front end.
Okay, the message identified by its ID.
So that props.id lines up with, so our message here lines up with our message here. Our put here lines up with our put right here. That means that our props.id lines up with the props.id right here. Because all of those line up, we can take that ID and dump it in to the SQL query using the where.
I'm sorry, I don't understand how that relates to the edit. Is that just what messages do anytime we fetch the messages from the database?
So think about this in reverse. It's not fetching it from the database. It's telling the database, I want to update a message.
Update messages, set text.
And we can't just set the text of all the messages. Well, we can, we did. We don't want to do that. We want to just set the text of one of them. So what we do is we pass in not only the content of the message, but also the ID of the message that we want to edit.
That's there's the content. Okay. You update, it responds. You put the update into props.id. Okay, could you leave the squigglies up for a minute?
Sure.
Thanks.
Now, a very legitimate question is, why didn't we put the ID in this body? And the answer is, we could have. And instead of using rec.params over here, we could have said rec.body.id. The reason we put it in the route, however, is that when we do edit requests, it is more typical for the ID to be as part of the route than it is to be in the body. However, that is entirely dependent on how the API is built, and whoever's API you're using would tell you, hey, it's got to be in the body, or it's got to be in the route, or it's got to be in a get param. All different places we can send data, totally dependent on how we built our API in order to know where to look for that ID. You guys are stuck on your level of understanding, you can reference Brian's answer that he came up with in the live stream channel and see if that helps you get unstuck anywhere. Not saying for you in particular, Jennifer, for everyone.
Mhm.
Like I'm a preschool teacher. All right, class, it's quiet time.
Where's our little like rug squares? We still need those.
Nope. Sorry. Making lunch plans for tomorrow.
What time are we showing up?
TBD. You guys are totally welcome to crash it though.
I happen to have tomorrow off, so that worked out really well.
Oh, they've got a chicken riggy. Oh, I'm hungry for lunch.
I'm always thinking about food.
You're stuck anywhere, if there's one point, even if you think it's super obvious or it should be super obvious, it's your last couple minutes to ask any questions.
Will it bother anybody's concentration if I read it to max?
Go for it.
So when a user needs to edit, we had to have created a div with the edit span in the front end. Messages are ID'd by props ID, where any edited message content would be stored for retrieval. In the back end, messages are updated when the server puts it into the messages ID. It has to be verified. And that's all I got.
So I would modify that a little bit to say, once the back end gets the put request, it then executes the update SQL query using the information sent in the body and the ID in the params. And then there's really only one more step based off of what gets sent back.
Okay, wait, I didn't catch that. When the back end executes
The SQL query,
SQL,
it uses the message content sent in the body and the ID sent in the params.
to update the SQL.
To update the SQL table.
Yeah, okay, good.
You're not really updating the SQL itself, you're updating the contents of the SQL database or table.
Yes. Now I can't read my writing. It uses the message, content. And ID, okay.
Anyone else want to take a stab at what they've got so far? The most important part of this exercise is identifying the where. Where is it doing it? Once you can get that one line down, you can say what that one line is trying to accomplish. Sometimes the insurmountable hurdle is going, I don't know, it's working. I don't know where, I can't explain that. You go, all right, where does it start? Start at that user interaction. How does the user edit a message? Okay, well, they can't edit a message. They couldn't edit a message at the beginning of class. Why can they now? Well, we put an edit button in there. Okay, start at that edit button. Then just start pulling the string on that. Where does that edit button go? Oh, that was that on click. Okay, what's happening in that on click? All right, why are we doing a fetch? Where does that fetch go? All right, keep pulling that string, right? That's how you want to be thinking about this as an engineer. Because if you go, the edit button just works, there's probably 50 lines of code we wrote tonight to get that edit button to work, right? But if you start tracing through it and breaking it down line by line, the lines become easier, but they only become easier because you're looking at them in the right order. This is not a read it from the top down and you'll understand it. This is not a book. This is thinking like a computer and thinking like an engineer. And so that's why this exercise is so important. So I will stick around for a couple minutes, but if you feel like you're close, if you feel like you're getting it, I would encourage you to really try and work on this exercise. If you feel like Brian's explanation was helpful, then go to the live stream, reread that, see if that makes more of the pieces fall into place for you. We all have a different way of understanding and a different method of teaching, right? So the way Brian may have worded it may be more concise for you. It may make more sense than the 3 hours it took us to go through and write this code. This is the point where we say, hey, do you understand this? Could you do this in a job? And if the answer is no, take that moment and say, where am I getting stuck? Don't be afraid to shoot me that message. Hey, I'm stuck here. I don't understand what the point of this is. I don't know what this line is doing. I don't know what happens after this. That's okay. So all different points that you want to be able to convey. And that's why we go to Open Hack on Thursday at 6 p.m. Right? So we can communicate about this stuff. Yeah, we can all say this is hard, this is intense, this is frustrating, but being able to break it apart and identifying where it's frustrating is going to make it so much easier to get over that frustration. My mental health counseling fee is
$119.
oh, good. It's good to know that's the going rate.
Yeah.
I accept no insurances unless you work at Google or Apple or no, I'm just kidding.
You don't even have to meet for a whole hour. I think 15 minutes is the smallest billable unit.
Learned that lesson the hard way when I was fixing computers and doing like hardware IT work in high school. And I tell people I was $30 an hour and they would go, $30 an hour? You're a teenager. I'm not paying you $30 an hour. And then I'd fix it in 15 minutes and go, $30, please. Go, what? Oh, minimum an hour charge. Sorry, I fixed it too quickly.
You could have said too, well, if you don't like my rates, you can take it somewhere else where they'll charge you double.
Jordan, do you want to share your screen? I'm hoping that it's one last thing to get you clear and unstuck, and then you can finally catch up. You guys are done for the night. Feel free to shoot me any messages if you want to confirm your findings. If not, have a great evening. I will see you tomorrow for the blog project. We're going to start user authentication tomorrow.
Okay. Do you still want me to message what I read to you?
Sure. It's up to you guys. If you want to verify the way that you're thinking is correct, that's totally fine. Shoot me a message and I will verify that. See, Archel, this is what screen sharing looks like.
Yeah, you'd know that if you could do it.
You know, this is how kids who seek revenge in the future get made.
Is this cyberbullying? I didn't do anything.
Oh, I spelled Postgres wrong.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that's working. And I'm gonna try one more thing while I have you.
You were thinking about it that whole class, weren't you?
Fortunately, my brain runs on
couple different wavelengths.
multi-threaded. Create user. Why? Come on, screen share. You can do it.
Do you want me to move this over? Oh, sorry.
Oh, is there a pop-up error or something?
No, it's just you're clicking on the screen share screen.
It's
you-
not letting, it's not like focusing your, oh. Is it just not showing me your cursor? Why can I not type in there?
Because here, let me move this over first.
Yeah.
Oh fuck. I hate this. I don't like any of this. All right. There we go. Now that that's out of the way, now go for it.
Oh, that fixed it. Thank you. I couldn't see whatever I was clicking on.
It was the little banner of Zoom up at the top when you start screen sharing.
Oh yeah, it just was not letting me click on that. Okay. If I take this out. Okay, you now exist. Congratulations.
Nice.
Please don't crash the database in any way, shape, or form.
I'm trying not to.
Final call.
Am I
Any
done?
questions? Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
Clyde.
Max, it's not about the coding. I have the problem with the Mac computer in playing this video. So
Yep.
it wasn't like the speed is so fast. I cannot do any analysis with it. So I'm gonna share it to you.
Okay. Oh, you know what? Let me stop the recording.